slipping on shells. I was falling down holes. There was a 3D open world out there, but I was stuck inside scroll. I could have been winning at checkers, but I was losing at chess until I solved the biggest puzzle and I unlocked the treasure chest. And now I'm winning. I'm winning. I am playing the right game finally. I'm winning. I'm winning. And I am using the right name finally. I'm a player, not an obstacle. I am redefining possible. I have a new victory condition. There are many more than two ways to win. I'm winning. I'm winning. I am playing the right game finally. I'm winning. I'm winning. And I am using the right name finally. Left, right, B, A, and start. Listen to me and love with your heart. Pick up the piece and roll the dice. You can help a person have a better life. And maybe it's new, and maybe it's hard. Can't you try to care? 'Cause players like me and all my friends have always been there. I'm winning. I'm winning. I am playing the right game finally. I'm winning. I'm winning. I am using the right name finally. I'm winning. I'm winning. And I am playing the right game finally. I'm winning.
Good morning. Welcome to our online version of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Utica. I'm the Reverend Erin Holly, the minister of this church. Whether you are visiting for the first time or have been a member for many years, you are welcome here. Whatever faiths you have known, if any, you are welcome here. Whoever you are and whomever you love, you are welcome here. We are invited to bring our whole selves to this worship service, our doubts as well as our convictions, the pain and joy we have known, our longing for connection and understanding. Every part of you is welcome here. If you are signing in for the first time today, we are glad that you have joined us and hope that you will stay for informal conversation in breakout groups after the service. Next week, we will be joining the Unitarian Universalist Church of Kent, Ohio for their online service. Please look for the links this week. And also add to your calendar to take special note that that service will begin at 10 o'clock. And afterwards, we will again have our online UU Utica coffee hour. And I would like to introduce our guest minister this morning is Dan Miyake, who is currently serving the First UU Society of Albany, New York. He hails from Dayton, Ohio, and claims the Miami Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Dayton as his home congregation. He received his Master of Divinity degree from Earlham School of Religion, which is a Quaker seminary in Richmond, Indiana, and worked as a chaplain resident at a level 1 trauma hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina. Dan was recently welcomed into preliminary fellowship with the UUA as a UU minister. This is no small feat. Congratulations, Dan, for passing the MFC. And once he has finished his internship in Albany in June, he will begin serving as the new minister at the Universalist Unitarian Church of East Liberty in Clark Lake, Michigan, and that will start in August. Congratulations on a successful search, Dan. Dan also holds a Master of Music Education degree and plays the French horn. He currently lives in Albany with his partner, Erica, and their 2 tripod cats, Nova and Frank. Dan and Erica both enjoy fishing, going to parks, collecting rocks and gemstones, and exploring antique stores. Thank you for being with us this morning, Dan. We really look forward to hearing you. Let us open our hearts and minds to the experience of community and the wisdom of love.
Our call to worship this morning is titled Grace Meets Us Where We Are by Gretchen Haley. There's nothing you need to bring with you to be welcome here. No right beliefs or proof of citizenship. No eternal optimism or clarity of conviction. Less courage or expertise. Not need to know what brought you here, or how you will solve that problem you are turning over and over and over in your mind. Your bills do not need to be paid, and your checkbook can be a mess. Your children may have been up half the night. Your hearing aids may not be working, and your knees might be cracking. You do not need to be already perfect or even halfway to belong in this circle where grace meets us where we are, but does not leave us as it found us, where love resides in each of us, yet is somehow more than all, where life still changes and heals and transforms. Number 389, gather the spirit. We'll do it as a round, in 3 parts, 3 times through.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour,
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the war, Spirit draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the one strong body, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the struggle of the hour, gathered here in the struggles of the body, gathered here in the struggle and the war, Spirit draw near. Okay, now you can hear me. We kindle this chalice flame because there is darkness in our world. The shadows of injustice, oppression, hate, and intolerance fill too many lives with gloom. We light this small flame, not because it will vanquish all darkness, but because it is a start. Rather than condemn the dark, we have chosen to bring the light.
The man's a stonecutter. And a long time ago, before there were machines, stone cutting had to be done by hand. And it was hard work. It didn't pay much. And it was he was very poor. And so we're going to listen to the story of the stonecutter by Benjamin Hoff. It's from the book The Tao of Pooh. There once was a stonecutter who was dissatisfied with himself and his position in life. And one day he passed a rich businessman's house, and through the open gateway, he saw many fine possessions and important visitors. How powerful that businessman must be, thought the stonecutter. He became very envious, and he wished that he could be like the businessman. Then he would no longer have to live the life of a mere stonecutter. And to his great surprise, he suddenly became the rich businessman, enjoying more luxuries and power than he had ever dreamed of. And he was envied and hated by those less wealthy than himself. But soon the king passed by, carried It was a hot summer day, and the king felt very uncomfortable in his sticky chair, and he looked up at the sun, and it shone proudly in the sky, unaffected by his presence. So he says, "How powerful that sun is. I wish I could be the sun." And then he shut down on everyone, scorching the fields, and he was cursed by the farmers and the workers. But then a huge cloud moved between him and the earth so that his light could not shine on the earth below. Well, how powerful that storm cloud is, he thought. I wish I could be the storm cloud. Then poof, he became the cloud, flooding the fields and villages, shouted out by everyone. But soon he found that he was being pushed away by some great unseen force, and he realized it was the wind. Well, how powerful the wind is, he thought. I wish I could be the wind. Then poof, he became the wind, blowing tiles off roofs, uprooting trees, hated and feared by all. But after a while, he ran up against something that would not move, no matter how forcefully he blew against it. It was a huge, towering stone mountain. Well, how powerful that stone mountain is, he thought. I wish I could be the stone mountain. And poof, he became the stone mountain, more powerful than anything else on earth. But as he stood there, he heard the sound of a hammer pounding a chisel into solid rock, and he felt himself being changed. What could be more powerful than I, the stone god? And he looked down and saw below him the figure of a stonecutter. So the stonecutter learned that the best thing he could be was just to be himself.
As we are a religious community, we rely on one another to make our community happen. We rely on donations of financial contributions to be able to pay for staff and to have the things that we need to do this, to even pay for Zoom. And we need your time and your energy as well. And so I'd like to encourage you, since we can't physically pass the basket, to utilize the link in the chat if you would like to make a donation over PayPal. Also, if you have been collecting change and small bills to bring to the church when we meet in person again, we're realizing it may be many months. And so we'd like to encourage you to make sure that you take that amount and send a check or a PayPal donation to the church prior to the end of June so that we can count it for this year's budget. And if you do send such a check, please just put plate donation on that check so that we know where to put it into our budget. And of course, we always accept whatever generosity you are willing to offer us. And thank you so much. Now we will practice community candles, which is an opportunity for the congregation to be with one another as we mark notable things happening in our lives. If you would like to light a candle where you are, please do so, and in frame if you'd like us to see that. If you would like to briefly share about a significant event in your life and have me light a candle, please unmute yourself, or you can type it into the chat. You could also privately message me in the chat so that I can light a candle in silence for you. So let us open ourselves to giving of the things that we would like candles to be lit for, and also receiving and giving our thoughts and prayers. As always, I light a final candle for everything that has remained unspoken. This candle is for everyone who is struggling right now, whether it be a struggle with their own health, whether it be a struggle with COVID-19 for themselves or a family member, for everyone who is suffering from this disease, who is suffering from other maladies that cannot necessarily be treated right now. I hold in my heart everyone who has lost income due to this pandemic, all of the uncertainty that we are holding, not knowing what we can expect, be that in our own lives on when we can finally get our hair cut again, or in the life of the church and when we may be able to gather once again and embrace one another. There is much that we hold. And in all of that, we still have the joy of the changing of the seasons, the joy of seeing each other's faces this morning, the joys of the little happinesses that we have in our own lives. And so I have lit this candle for the sacredness, the holiness of everything that is our lives and the lives of everyone on this planet. May it be blessed, for it is sacred. Amen.
As we enter the time of meditation, I invite you to reflect on these words by Gordon McKeeman titled Contact. I stretch forth my hand, knowing not what I shall touch, a tender, an open wound, warmth, pulse, fragile blossoms, a rock, ice. I'm tentative, trembling, wishing away to hurt, wanting to link my life with life. Lonely, I desire companions. Naked, I long for defenders. Lost, I want to find, to be found. Will I touch strangers or enemies or nothing? My hand is withdrawn, but still it touches my vulnerable skin, my furrowed brow, my empty pocket, my full heart. Do others reach, tremble, withdraw? Do they desire, long, seek? Are they lonely, fearful, lost? Will they grasp a tentative, trembling hand? I stretch forth my hand, knowing not what I shall touch, but hoping.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Our reading today comes from the pen of theologian Paul Tillich. You are accepted from the shaking of the foundations. Grace strikes us when we are in great pain and restlessness. It strikes us when we walk through the dark valley of a meaningless and empty life. It strikes us when we feel that our separation is deeper than usual because we have violated another life, a life which we loved, or from which we were estranged. It strikes us when our disgust for our own being, our indifference, our weakness, our hostility, and our lack of direction and composure have become intolerable to us. It strikes us when year after year that longed for perfection of life does not appear, when the old compulsions reign within us as they have for decades, when despair destroys all joy and courage. Sometimes, at that moment, a wave of light breaks into our darkness, and it as though a voice were saying, "You are accepted. You are accepted. Accepted by that which is greater than you, and the name of which you do not know. Do not ask for the name now. Perhaps you will find it later. Do not try to do anything now. Perhaps later you will do much. Do not seek for anything. Do not perform anything. Do not intend anything. Simply accept the fact that you are accepted. If that happens to us, we experience grace. After such an experience, we may not be better than before, and we may not believe more than before, but everything is transformed. In that moment, grace conquers sin, and reconciliation bridges the gulf of estrangement. And nothing is demanded of this experience, no religious or moral or intellectual presupposition. Nothing but acceptance. This past summer, I wrote a letter of introduction to the First UU Society of Albany, introducing myself as their new intern minister. It included the typical stuff you would find in such a letter, where I went to seminary, my hobbies, my passions, and some goals. But it also contained a rather personal disclosure. Before I arrived in Albany, I had wondered how I might be welcomed and accepted there. In my experience, even the most enlightened UUs can be uncomfortable with people who are different. See, in that letter, I told them that I was transgender. I easily could not have shared this aspect with them, but I chose to do so, as I am with you now, because transgender lives continue to be threatened in a world that refuses to accept us. And it feels important to me that more people become better educated about the challenges those of us who face, and how much lies to create and expand space for an expression of all gender identities. When I was a child, I was the proverbial tomboy. I didn't understand then that I was transgender. I didn't yet have the vocabulary. Instead, I loved playing with my brother's G.I. Joes and playing football. I went fishing any chance I could get, and I'd rather play kickball with the boys during recess than hang out with the girls jumping rope or sitting. How boring. I abhorred wearing dresses and detested anything flowery or girly. My mom said that she'd take me to get my hair cut. And I'll never forget how sitting in the little booster seat there waiting for the beautician, I leaned over and whispered to my mom, "I want my hair cut like a boy's." I will never forget the look my mom gave me when I did that. She didn't need to say anything, but she clearly communicated to me how inappropriate and unnatural that request was. I never mentioned it again, or any other topic related to gender. But I was left feeling that there was something not right about me. I didn't fully understand that the puzzle pieces of my identity that I wanted to put together, boy puzzle pieces, were inappropriate and not allowed. And I resented being forced to use someone else's pieces. Even though I did not have the vocabulary, I instinctively knew who I was, everyone else. As I entered adolescence, I resisted puberty with every fiber of my being. My gender was questioned frequently, and I was neither accepted by the girls nor the boys. Teasing and bullying commonplace, and I developed an extremely low self-esteem, and I was also very anxious and horribly shy, and I never told anyone about my inner angst about my gender, not even my mom. As I grew into adulthood, the thought of living within the social expectations and norms repulsed me. I felt very alone and isolated. And by this time, I clearly understood that to survive in the world, I had to put together a false puzzle using other people's pieces. That is, my identity was based on the projections of what society expected of someone born with a female body, and not my own sense of self. In fact, I spent the better part of my life being normal, much to my detriment. I was obsessed with the desire to be perceived as a normal female, including marrying a man. I desperately wanted that acceptance and validation, and God, did I try. I inflicted a lot of emotional pain on myself by trying to live by society's standards. I tried to force my square peg into society's round hole, and when I failed, and how could I not fail? It did nothing but to reinforce my belief that I was somehow less than. Paul Tillich's words that we heard, that grace strikes us when our disgust for our own being, our indifference, our weakness, our hostility, and those words describe perfectly how I felt about my life up until about 9 years ago, up until I first experienced the grace of acceptance, and that grace did, in fact, come when I least expected it. It was at the beginning of my first semester of seminary in the fall of 2010 that I met Brent, a fellow student. We became close friends very quickly. And early in this semester, Brent disclosed to me that he was transgender. Had he not shared this with me, I would have never known he was trans. And I felt honored that he trusted with me that information so early in our friendship. And his disclosure completely hearing. I never knew such a thing, this gender transition was possible. I mean, I'd heard words like sex change operation and some other derogatory words which conjured up negative mental images. Even then, our culture had conditioned me, like so many other people, to believe that transitioning was something only a mentally ill person would do. I never really understood how a normal person could really transition from one gender to another. And up until that point in my life, I had made peace with myself with the fact that I had a female body. And I resigned myself to living within the cultural and social expectations of someone with such a body. That was just how things were. I was still chasing normal, which meant I felt obligated to live as a woman, even though I never really accepted myself. Imagine my surprise then, and my swell of hope, and the excitement I felt when Brent shared his story with me. Suddenly, my entire life went through this complete paradigm shift. All of the puzzle pieces finally fit together. The right kind of puzzle pieces that showed the true picture of me. So many things made sense then. The realization that I was trans explains so much about my life experiences. I experienced the grace of acceptance by accepting myself for the first time. So in January of 2011, at the beginning of my second semester of seminary, I came out as being transgender. That is, I shared my and what I experienced in that coming out was nothing short of miraculous. I experienced the grace of acceptance in every aspect of my life. However, I was a little nervous when I told my mom. Turned out, though, that I had nothing about. When I told her, to my surprise, she started laughing. And she replied with a chuckle, "It's about damn time. I always knew." Wow, Mom. I was a little miffed that she had never broached the topic with me before, but I was relieved beyond measure by her response. Even though my transition was relatively easy, it was not without problems. As a member of the trans community, I've experienced instances of hate, as being evil, perverted, godless, a threat to society, a threat to traditional marriage. Horrible things have been said to my face, that I was mentally ill, morally empty, a Satanist, and that I should be euthanized. And that last one was the hardest one to stomach, and it still stings to this day. However, as emotionally and spiritually hurtful as are, the real problems come into play in the practical and everyday act and my concern for my safety. In most states, I can be fired from a job, denied health care, denied housing, and be evicted because I'm trans. I was born in Tennessee, states that refuses to change birth certificate sex designations, which makes getting a passport kind of challenging. Every time I do anything that requires that I submit my social security number, I am outed. That is, my identity is made known to others without my knowledge and or consent. My social security number will forever be tied to my former identity. And even though I legally changed my name, every time it comes up in a search, you'll see my former name. There's nothing more unnerving and standing in the DMV, or here I think you say BMV, in a crowded room full of grumpy people, and having to explain the discrepancy between my former name, and my current name to a clueless clerk. And it's also potentially dangerous. And I'm sure you've all heard of the bathroom bills that would make it a crime to use a public restroom different than that of the gender indicated on your birth certificate. I would be required to use the women's restroom, which would likely not only frighten the women, but would also put me at risk for violent attack. Physical attacks are not the only kinds of attacks, however. Microaggressions can cause great harm. Microaggressions are comments, actions, or questions directed towards someone's marginalized identity, such as people who are trans, people of color, people who are disabled, that on the surface, they can seem innocuous or even supportive. Microaggressions cause real, often significant harm, though often the aggressor is unaware there's anything wrong with what they did or said. And many times the aggressor considers themselves to be an ally. In regard to transgender microaggressions specifically, curiosity is probably the #1 cause of inappropriate comments or questions that cause pain to a trans person. Why people are so curious about trans bodies baffles me, but as one former congregant told me when demanding that I disclose something personal about my body, said, "Inquiring minds want to know." Yeah, no. His curiosity did not obligate me to answer. Just as Brent shared his story with me over time, as we built a relationship, what I share about my story and my body is my decision and is never a response to someone's demand or curiosity. Microaggressions are commonplace. Back home in my beloved congregation in Dayton, my chosen family, the people still always do a good job with the welcoming thing. I love these people and care deeply for them, but sometimes they just don't get it. Now, early on in my transition, I experienced many microaggressions during coffee hour from extremely well people with good intentions and who wanted to be supportive. For example, people would ask, "Have you had the surgery?" Or folks would ask, like, "Did you hear about the trans speaker who's coming to such and such venue next week? Or did you read this article about this trans issue or trans person?" And upon announcing my engagement to the congregation, someone said, "I'm so glad anyone can get married now." Really? What about a simple congratulations? Wasn't very welcoming. Reducing someone's humanity to a stereotype never is. There were times when, despite their good intentions, I felt pain from their insensitive or hurtful words. It was as if I wore a sign around my neck that said, "Hi, I'm Dan, I'm transgender. You can only talk to me about trans stuff, and it's okay to ask personal questions." I did quite a lot of compassionate educating, and things improved over time as people learned. Fewer people asked awkward questions during coffee hour, and I became less exoticized. Over the years, the congregation learned how to be more welcoming and accepting, and by doing so, they helped me to feel like I was fully accepted as a member of the community. I became family totally changed my life. I knew with absolute certainty that I belonged, that I was loved, and that I was accepted for my whole self. It was life-giving and life-saving. I don't know of any greater gift. So this is what I leave with you. I strongly and passionately believe that the lives of LGBTQ plus people can, if we feel like we belong somewhere, if we feel accepted, free to live as our true, authentic selves, our whole selves, without having to feel like we need to chase normal just to survive. And when we're offered the grace of acceptance, we're free to live into our potential without having to live under the shadow of judgment, misunderstanding, or fear. What a powerful gift. And we all have the ability to give it. May it be so. And now I invite you to join in voice or spirit as final hymn number 1053, How Could Anyone?
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. Please join me in the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again.
I leave you with this Franciscan benediction. May God bless you with discomfort within your. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed reach out your hand to comfort them and to turn their pain into joy. And may God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in the world so that you can do what others claim cannot be done. Go in peace.
And Julia recorded us a lovely piece on cello that they would like to introduce.
Yes, so this is one of the movements of the third suite that J.S. Bach wrote for unaccompanied cello. And something that I wanted to share with you is something that I really enjoy about playing these suites, which are made up of very small dance-like movements. And they traditionally have an element of repetition built into them. So you play the first part of the movement, then you play it again, then you move to the second part, and then you play the second part again. And I want to let you know that ahead of time, because what I find is that you can't actually play those pieces the same way twice, because the time you come through them again, you are already informed by what you've done the first time. And likewise, I don't think that you can hear them quite the same way twice, because even if you try to, you are a new person after the first time you've heard it, and you cannot go back to where you were before. And so I like to really lean into that when I play, and I just wanted to let you know that ahead of time, because I think it's fun to have